Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Echoes from the Basement, an X-Files podcast. I'm your host, Alice, and each week I revisit a classic episode of The X-Files while sharing my take on the strange and mysterious adventures of Agents Scully and Mulder. And who knows, I might even make a believer out of you. Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm here with my temporary co-host. His name is Brutus. He is a little white chihuahua. My husband and I found him a couple days ago, eating out of our neighbor's trash. We decided to pick him up and bring him home. We have recently found his home, and we're gonna meet up with his family later, hopefully. But he's adorable. I love him. He's such a silly dog. Let's talk about my trip. We went to Vancouver. It was really fun. It was kind of quiet in the city, and that was really weird. So we got some cool stuff, and we went to Science World. It was super fun. And then we went to this burger place called Triple O's, I believe, and the food was actually really good there. And from our hotel, we had a great view of the city. Overall, in Vancouver, we kind of just hung out and chilled. We went to this bar, and I want to say it was called Arcania, perhaps. The outside area says Pet Psychic. I would most certainly recommend this bar. The drinks are so fun. I got this star drink, and it comes with its own little tarot cards. And my husband got the Cthulhu drink, and it came in a Cthulhu cup. Everything was awesome. It was just really hot in there, sadly. But let's get into the episode. We are on episode 13, Beyond the Sea. We start off at Scully's place. I'm not sure if it's an apartment or a home, but it's her home, I guess. We see an angel perched on top of a Christmas tree. There's a man. We are thinking it is Scully's dad. He says, "Are you going to leave this Christmas tree up all year?" Scully replies with, "Yeah, because you always made us take it down after Christmas." My mom also does that. She will literally get her Christmas tree a few days before Christmas, put it up, leave it up, day after Christmas, immediately comes down. My mom hates the Christmas tree, I guess. But us, my husband and I, because we all get real Christmas trees, we leave ours up until January, February. Anyway, Scully's dad says he hates picking up the pine needles. That's why he takes the tree down so fast. I understand that. My mom also hates that. I also understand that comes with getting a real Christmas tree, but I just don't like the fake ones. But to each your own. We see that Scully's mom comes into view where she's helping Scully clean up the table. I also want to mention that the dad is also the officer guy from Twin Peaks. I thought that was really cool. Her parents eventually make their way to the door, and everybody kind of starts saying goodbye. Scully's dad refers Scully as Starbuck, and Scully refers to him as Ahab from Moby Dick. It's kind of like their cute inside joke. Before Scully's mom and dad leave, Scully's dad asks her, "How is work going for you?" Scully says, It's going good. I just work with a man that's obsessed with the paranormal and unexplained." They all say their goodbye. Scully sees her parents out, and then she closes the door. We see that it's 1:47 a.m. We're watching something on the TV. I think it's some sort of spray hair commercial. We see that Scully has fallen asleep on the couch. I also love a good couch nap myself. We see that Scully is awakened and frightened because we see her father sitting in a chair across from her. He's trying to say something, he's mouthing some words, but we are not exactly sure what he says. Scully starts panicking, kinda. She says, "Dad, didn't you guys leave? Where's Mom?" Scully sits up and kind of starts to question her dad a little bit more about how he got into her place. We still see that her dad is trying to mouth something. The phone rings and Scully turns around for just a moment, and when she turns back around, her father is gone. The phone continues to ring, and Scully is just very confused during this time. She picks up the phone, says hello. Scully then hears crying on the other end. She keeps repeating, "Hello, hello, hello." It's her mom. She informs Scully her dad just passed away. He had a heart attack about an hour ago and he's gone. Scully is shocked. She then looks over to the chair she just saw her father in disbelief. She's very confused, terrified, saddened at this point. We're now at Jackson University at Raleigh, North Carolina. We see an eerie street. We see a woman talking about Christmas Day. She discusses how she's going to be here on Christmas Day instead of with her family in her own little world. We now see that there is a couple making out in this car, but then there's a knock on the window. It seems to be a police officer. The teens think that they're in some sort of trouble. The young man in the car rolls down the window while the officer shines the flashlight in his eyes, maybe for a particular reason. The officer says, "Get out of the car, please." The young man leaves the car while the young lady stays in it. The police officer, though, keeps the flashlight in the young man's eyes. The young man is face to face with the cop now. We cannot see who the officer is. We can't see his face at all. We do see that the officer is wearing some kind of work boot. That's very strange. We all know that officers don't really wear brown boots. The officer says, "Well, let me see some ID," to the young man. The teenage boy ended up catching on to the charade of the police officer and says, "Well, I want to see your ID. I want to see your badge." The officer hits the teenage boy over the head with the flashlight, and his face goes straight into the car's window. We see blood everywhere. The teenage girl screams. We're at FBI HQ. We see that something is addressed to Fox Mulder. We then see Mulder reading a criminal profile. Scully comes up from behind him and she says, "Last time I saw you reading so intensely, it was the adult video news." Mulder says, "Well, how are you, Dana?" Now you know he's serious because he's using Scully's first name. Scully says that she's fine, but we can kind of see some pain behind her eyes. Mulder goes on to tell Scully that a couple was kidnapped 2 nights ago at Jackson University. This is probably the couple we just saw before. Their names are Elizabeth Hawley and James Summer, both 19. We see some photos of the couple. Mulder explains this couple and another couple some time ago were both kidnapped on the same day, but the other one was at Duke University. The police found the teenagers from Duke University a week later and they were all dead. Scully starts looking over the profile and looking at some of the evidence. Trigger warning, she does go on to say that the teens were tortured during the time that they were kidnapped, referring to the teenagers that were from Duke University. Mulder says the police couldn't find the murderer, and now he has become a serial offender. Mulder then says they only have 5 days to find James and Elizabeth. Mulder explains that an inmate, Luther Lee Boggs, located in North Carolina, trigger warning, will be sentenced to death by the gas chamber. Scully asks, what does this guy have to do with any of the murders or kidnappings? Mulder says he has some info regarding the recent kidnapped couple. He described what Elizabeth's bracelet looked like, down to every inch of detail. Only her direct family would know any of this info. Scully then says he could be the kidnapper or be working with the kidnapper. Boggs states that he believes his talent can help with the case, but he wants he wants the death penalty taken off the table. He just wants to be sentenced to life in prison. He wants to cut a deal. Scully says, well, what talent does he have? Mulder explains that he, Boggs, received all this info from some sort of psychic transmission. Scully says, oh, now Mulder, you're a skeptic? You're a skeptic of this man's abilities? Mulder goes on to explain that in this case, he might be one. His profile sent Boggs to the gas chamber before. Trigger warning, Mulder goes on to explain that Boggs was strapped to the chair and everything until he received an executive stay. So he got life in prison once again. Mulder then goes on to say, because of this experience, Boggs says that he can now hear spirits and demons and he has these psychic abilities. Mulder says he believes in psychic abilities, but not when it comes to Boggs in this case. Scully says, So do you think that Boggs is in charge of the kidnapping and it's just all some sort of scam to save his life? Mulder nods in agreement. He then goes on to share some dark lore about Boggs, ranging from when he was about 6. One instance, trigger warning, Boggs strangled all 5 of his family members on Thanksgiving over a disagreement. Afterwards, he just went and watched some football, as if nothing had ever happened. Mulder states that Boggs enjoys killing and that's why he doesn't. Mulder then explains that Boggs has requested to speak with him. Scully says, "Why of you of all people?" Mulder says, "Because he read the profile I wrote and thinks that I am the one that can truly understand him." Scully says she wants to go to North Carolina with Mulder. Mulder is like, "Are you sure?" Scully says, "Yeah, my father's funeral is at noon. This is clearly not a healthy work-life balance." Mulder insists that Scully takes some time off, but in true fashion, she says, "I need to work." I think that these characters both have that in common, that they just continue to work with no breaks during very emotional periods. I think both of them don't want to face their own fears. They rather just work instead and not think about it. Mulder caresses Scully's face and says, "I'm sorry about what happened to your father." I also wanted to mention that I saw Max's nightcap and ICAP hat on the coat rack. How did I not see that before? Everybody take a look when in that scene when Mulder's leaving, you can see the hat right in the frame. I also want to ask, do you guys think that Mulder wears the hat? We then see Mulder leave while Scully stays behind and goes through some of the X-Files. She pulls one out in particular. It says, "Visionary Encounters with the Dead." Things are heating up. We're at Scully's dad's funeral. Beyond the Sea is playing. Scully's whole family is there watching a man pour Scully's dad's ashes into the sea from his boat. Scully turns around angrily to her mom and says he was a captain, he was entitled to a full service and a burial plot in Arlington Cemetery. Scully's mom says this is what he wanted, just us, just the family. Scully's mom then shares some lore about her husband. She says this song was playing when he returned home from the Cuban blockade, and then he proposed to me. Scully says to her mother, "I knew you guys were disappointed, especially Dad, when I became an FBI agent instead of pursuing medicine." Scully asks with tears in her eyes, "Was he ever proud of me?" Her mom just says, "Well, he was your father." That doesn't really help, but okay, fine. We're at Central Prison, Riley, North Carolina. We see someone with tatted knuckles saying "kill and kiss" on them. Someone says that Boggs is not here, but he is in hell, swimming in fire. We have him now. This is all coming from Boggs, mind you. Mulder says, "Who is we? Are they the souls of your victims?" Boggs says, "No, it's the dead. No, the living souls are all connected." Boggs has tears in his eyes and his breathing starts to become labored as Mulder asks, "Are you a conduit?" Boggs doesn't respond. He then turns around and says, "Dana, Fox, we can see the past, present, and future here." Mulder says, "Where are you?" Boggs doesn't respond and closes his eyes. He comes back as someone else, saying Mr. Boggs must be pardoned for his transgressions. Mulder says, "Yeah, that's what North Carolina is going to do soon." Boggs says, "No, let's deal. I'll tell you where the kids are, but I need to cut a deal." This is all in a completely different voice. Mulder says, "Well then show us you're telling us the truth." Mulder takes out a cloth from an evidence bag. He says, "I want to believe you, Boggs," and hands the cloth to the inmate. Boggs smells it and feels it, rolls the fabric around in his hand. He starts shouting, "Stop! Pain! The boy Jim is tied with twine." The murderer whips him with a coat hanger. He starts to breathe heavy and says, "Dark place, that's cold, a cellar, some sort of warehouse, an angel of stone, waterfall, water falling." The teenagers are there. Boggs then says he has to leave now. Mulder picks up the cloth and says to Boggs in his ear, "I tore the fabric off my own shirt." Mulder has proven that Boggs is a fake. Scully is shooketh. The 2 agents leave, and as they are leaving, Boggs starts to sing "Beyond the Sea." This makes Scully stop in her tracks and look behind her frightened. She sees her father's face again. She gasps. Boggs says, "Did you get my message, Starbuck?" Scully is terrified. No science can explain this event. Mulder says, "Did Boggs say something to you?" Scully says, "No," in disbelief. "It's my father." Mulder says, "Go get some rest. We all know that he is orchestrating this kidnapping. I'm going to keep questioning him some more to find out where those kids have gone to." We see that Scully closes her eyes and imagines Bob and what he said earlier. She opens them and sees a hotel sign that looks like water and a stone angel across the street. She continues to look around and sees a car driving into an alley to a condemned building of all places. Boggs's vision is coming together. Maybe he is telling the truth. Scully enters the abandoned building and looks. There's water and candles everywhere, and she sees a bracelet on the ground. It must be from Elizabeth. We also see a wire coat hanger. All these things Boggs has mentioned. We're now at the motel. We see that Scully is in shock. We see flashes of her father's face on the night he came to her. Someone is knocking at her door now. It's Mulder. We can see that Scully is scared and she doesn't know what to believe anymore. Elizabeth's family ID'd her bracelet and said it belonged to her. Mulder says the police searched that place but found nothing. He's referring to the condemned building. Mulder says, "I thought you would be there at the crime scene tonight." Scully says nothing, still trying to figure out what is going on in her own mind. Scully then asks, "Did Boggs confess?" Mulder says it was just 5 hours of him channeling different spirits. He then channeled the ghost of Jimi Hendrix upon Mulder's request. Scully blurts out how she lied to the police and about how she found the warehouse. She said that there was nothing suspicious about it. It was just where Boggs said it would be. Mulder says, "What? Boggs is a fraud." Scully says, "I saw the landmarks that he talked about, putting the pieces together." Mulder says that he could have killed you. Maybe that's what he wanted to do. Mulder says, "Why did you lie then?" Scully replies with, "I didn't want to say I followed what Boggs has said." Mulder says, "You didn't want to go on record saying that you believed in Boggs' crazy antics." The FBI would expect that from spooky Mulder, but not scientist Dana Scully. Scully angrily says, "I thought you would have been happy that now I somewhat believe." Mulder says, "Of all times, why now and why Boggs?" Mulder says, "Does this have to do with the death of your father?" It seems like you have to pry info out of Scully. Scully says no. Mulder replies with, "Well, maybe it's all because your dad didn't want you to become an agent. Maybe you feel some sort of guilt. I think you need some time off. You're putting yourself in danger." Scully says, "I love my job," and Mulder responds with, "And you love your father." Mulder gives some advice to Scully, stating only open yourself up to these possibilities when there is truth. This includes Boggs and your father. Mulder says that Boggs is a liar. He's working with someone and planted the evidence. The only advantage we have now is time. How can Mulder decide what is true or what might not be true? What could be true to him may not be true to Scully. We're at the central prison again. Mulder hands Scully a newspaper that says the kidnapped college students were found safe. Scully exclaims, "They found them! They found them! That's great!" Mulder says that's what he wants Boggs to think. The newspaper is a fake. Mulder goes on to say that only 6 people know about this article. Mulder's plan is that Boggs will call his partner and see what happened. The newspaper is delivered to Boggs. He receives it and sees the article. Scully and Mulder watch him from a camera. We see that Boggs is on his way to the phone. He has some phone privileges. He calls someone and looks into the camera. The person he is calling is Agent Mulder. "Why don't you believe me?" Agent Scully believes me. I feel like that's very chilling. Mulder says, "No, she doesn't. She believes what everybody else thinks. You're involved with those kids. Where are they?" Boggs passes out and goes unconscious for a second. Scully says urgently, "We have to follow Boggs' instructions, or in 3 days those kids will be gone. And then, the day after that, Boggs will be dead. We have to make a deal with him." Mulder says, "Give us his name." Boggs says, "I don't know what his name is." Mulder replies with, "Well, what does he look like?" Boggs says he's small, thin, late 20s, human skull. We see that the killer is wearing a skull earring. Silver gray, his eyes are cold. He is now staring at Elizabeth. We see that the teenage girl is tied up. We can see the killer now. He has the wire coat hanger. Boggs begs, "No, no." He hits Elizabeth with the wire. Boggs can feel Elizabeth's pain. Mulder says, "Where is the killer?" The inmate says, "He is over by a window, holding back his thoughts of hurting the girl." A small boathouse on Lake Jordan. Scully and Mulder leave. As they are leaving, Boggs says to Mulder, "Don't go near the White Cross. We see you down, and trigger warning, we see that blood will be spilled across the White Cross." We can see the killer now. He goes to hurt Elizabeth, but he stops. We see that Agent Scully and Mulder are running around with flashlights in the dark. They go to the abandoned building, push down the door, and look for the kids. We see that they find Elizabeth. Scully goes over to her and helps her. She tells the other agents to go sweep the dock. The agents run out. Mulder goes inside and looks around. We see a blanket moving in the wind. We then see Mulder is shot by someone under that blanket. Scully screams, "Mulder," and the killer gets away on a boat. Scully then screams, "We need an ambulance." She tends to him, but Scully looks up and sees a white cross with blood across it, like Boggs predicted. We're at the emergency room. We see that Mulder is being lifted onto a bed. The doctors start to work on him. Scully watches in terror. Elizabeth is in the hospital as well. She's being shown some pictures of some criminals. She needs to identify her abductor, but she keeps saying no. She then has a reaction to one man, and it's the killer's photo. The name of the killer is Lucas Jackson Henry. He was convicted on charges of sexual assault. He was also a witness to an auto accident. It involved his mother and his high school girlfriend. They both died in that car crash. The 7-year anniversary of that accident is in 3 days. Scully says he's reliving that moment. That would explain everything about this case. The other agents state that Boggs also committed murders with his partner, Lucas. Scully angrily rushes into Boggs' cell and says she knows what he's up to. "You're Lucas's partner. That's why you knew all this stuff and you put Agent Mulder and I in danger." Scully says, "If Mulder dies, trigger warning, I'm going to be the one that flips the switch to release the gas." Boggs is stunned and he says, "Dana, you are the only one that has believed me." She looks back and sees Mulder saying those words. Scully cries out, "No, no, I don't believe you." Boggs says, "You don't believe? Maybe you will believe yourself." He goes on to say, "When I was 14, when the whole house was asleep, I snuck downstairs and got a cigarette out of my mother's purse. I was so scared, but I was excited. The cigarette was gross, but it was the excitement that I craved." Scully replies that could be any kid's lure. Boggs says, "I know what you're after. I know what you're looking for. Why didn't you just ask?" Scully wants to talk to her father. That's how she's going to believe. Boggs summons Scully's father. He says, in a different voice, "Starbug." Scully is now on the verge of tears. Something then happens, and Boggs starts to crash out. His face gets really red, and he says in another voice, "Nobody gets to talk to anybody until we get a deal. Don't downplay my fear about the chair. I don't ever want to go back there again," he cries out. Boggs explains that last time he faced death, a minister talked to him. He never talked to a minister before that moment. The official said, "He who does not love remains in death, and who hates his brother is a murderer. No murderer has eternal life." We see Boggs and the minister in black and white, and he's being served his last meal. Boggs explains he killed, trigger warning, he killed his family after their last meal, and now they were watching him before he dies eat his last meal. His family watches him go into the gas chamber. Boggs said that the fear and horror was killing him, and it all came from his family. It transferred into him. It was a taste of hell. We see Boggs being strapped down in the gas chamber. He says he felt that he had an outer body experience. He saw thousands of souls rushing into his body. He then says it's a cold, dark place, and now Mulder is looking at it. Scully says, "Yeah, it's cold for you, but not for Mulder and my father." Boggs says, "I'm not going to let you speak to your father then. I need a deal." Scully says, "I don't believe you." Boggs says, "Well, there is a place for you in this dark place, because you're a liar. I know you believe me. Either way, no one is talking to anyone unless I get a deal. And if I die, that boy goes to the cold, dark place. Scully leaves the cell and Boggs watches her leave. We're in the central prison again. We see a man, possibly a lawyer, talking about how the governor is not going to make a deal with a mass murderer. He tells Scully that Boggs is going to get the death penalty. He's going to get what he deserves. Scully visits Mulder in the hospital and he's not looking too good. Scully says they're running out of time. They can't find Lucas or Jim Summers. Mulder says, "Don't bully Boggs. This is his plan to get revenge on me because I put him on death row." Scully says, "What if there's another explanation, Mulder?" Mulder says, "Just to avoid him. Avoid Boggs. He could make Scully his last victim." We're back at the prison, and Scully's talking to Boggs. She says that she has a deal. Where are the kids? Boggs channels something. He says he sees circles, barrels, and then a huge vat like a factory. Blue Devil Brewery by Morrisville. He says that the killer is getting ready to do something horrible. Scully says, "If you were a psychic, Boggs." He then interrupts and says, "I would have known you lied. There was no deal. I know you tried." He then leaves Scully with some advice to avoid the devil. "Don't follow Lucas to the devil. Leave that to me." Scully leaves. We see Lucas crashing out with an axe. He's in the brewery. We see that Jim is tied up. Lucas approaches Jim and gets ready to cut off the teenage boy's head, and agents then shout "freeze" at him. Scully has arrived to stop Lucas. Scully, with her weapons drawn, says, "Drop the axe." He goes to raise his axe, but Scully shoots him. She runs after the murderer. Lucas runs and takes out one of the officers with the bucket. Scully and another agent follow him, and then they split up. Scully sees the Blue Devil and is reminded about what Boggs had told her. We see Lucas step on a broken board and he falls to his death. Scully looks at the Blue Devil. She goes and visits Boggs in prison. Scully tells him that she believes he wasn't a part of Lucas's plan. If he knew all that info, he would have let Scully go across the bridge to her death, but he warned her. Scully says, "You saved my life and Jim Summers' life." Boggs approaches Scully and says, "You're here to settle something. You want the message from your father, but not now. He says he'll be there tonight. I want you, Scully, to be my witness. I will give you the message before I die." Trigger warning. We then see Boggs being served his last meal, his family watching him. We then see he's taken to the gas chamber, his family members watching him and whispering to him. He's then strapped to the chair, and we see his final moments. The door shuts as he's read his last rites. The gas is deployed. Scully is with Mulder in his hospital. She will never know what her father said to her. Scully says, "I do, just because he was my father. I will always know what he said." My thoughts on this episode: that it was great and interesting to see these characters in different places. It seems like there is some sort of switch. Mulder not believing and Scully becoming a believer. We also see that Scully is not as brave as we think she is. That she could also be afraid of what can't be explained. And that she is also a human being. My question to you is that, do you guys believe in psychics or psychic abilities? What about people being able to communicate with the dead? But that's it for today. Thanks for listening, all you truth seekers, abductees, and X-Files enthusiasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the show. And remember, the truth is out there. You just have to find it.